Hey, welcome to Loose Change. Way better than the after party. Well, I'm Jim Evans. Thanks for joining us, and you'll be so glad you did. Terrific guests standing by. He'll be joining us here in just a couple of moments, so hang tight. I'm hanging at home, Greg. As usual, really not doing anything. I'm laying on the couch, dozing and out, TV's on. And I wake up to see what I think is a science show. And this archaeologist had these huge stones. Then I look closer, it was this video of Mitt Romney. Here we are as we tape the show well into February. A lot of things have been going on. To kick it off, Browns owner, Jimmy Haslam, walked outside, saw his shadow, and fired it. So, you got that going. YSU has a new football coach. Doug Phillips returns home. He takes over for Bo Pelini, who left to go back to LSU. He joins Ed Orgeron, who got a nice hefty pay increase, extension for winning the national title. 6 years for, I think, $42 million. $42 million. I continue to emphasize that it will not be long. The day is coming when these college coaches will be making as much as the players. I'm telling you. It's going to happen. We're talking about February, of course. You mentioned that, and the mild winter here. Boy, it really hasn't been much of anything. Like down in Washington, D.C., they had to cancel ice skating because the ice thawed on the swamp. What they got to do there? Maybe they can still drink. Also in February, of course, we had the Super Bowl and then the Academy Awards. And there was a tie-in there, I thought. I think they missed on something. For me, best original score and best original screenplay should have gone to the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, come on, look what they did in the Super Bowl. But I was able to watch the Oscars, again, entertaining show, what I was able to see. It was a gala affair, again, as always, with the long flowing hairdos and the makeup and the revealing evening gowns. And again, that's still on a lot of the men. Hey, stick around. Jim Payne, Fitch Athletic Director, joins us next right here on Loose Change. I would if I were you. I'd stay right here.
Sending files, watching your favorite shows, adjusting your smart thermostat, calling mom. There's so much you can do today. It's amazing. But how do you manage all that new technology? Armstrong gives you control of your home network and all the entertainment that makes your world go round. If you need help, we're easy to reach for support too, by phone, web, or at our service locations. Armstrong is here to make everything work for you. Armstrong, life made easy.
Welcome back to Loose Change, and I have the great pleasure to be joined by the one, the only, Jim Payne, Athletic Director at Austintown. Fitch, great to see you, man.
You too.
And I'm still recovering from our trip to Cincinnati, 19 years ago or something like that?
20 years ago, yeah.
We'll talk about that. But what we like to have our victims or our guests do off the top is, for those who don't know, tell us about yourself, where you're from, where you went to school, and how your career path took shape.
I went to Wilson, graduated '83, did a construction trade life for about 20 years before I got into education.
Yeah.
Actually went and student taught at Frank Middle School, the old Frank at Austintown, and got hired right out of there. I've had 23 years of great experiences in Austintown ever since. Just about every job.
You've had several, but what were you initially teaching?
I first initially started teaching severe behavior kids. I had a one-year contract for that. The year after that, I kind of moved in and got a seventh grade spot in the science and social studies, and just started continuing to build from there.
What was that experience like with the first group of kids?
It's been downhill since that. They kept me busy, and I learned a lot. A lot of great experiences, though.
You moved on into administration after that. What was your goal? I mean, was that your goal going in as you got into teaching?
Well, actually, as a teacher, I coached football for a couple years, and then I moved into I was one of the first assistant ADs that they had at Fitch, and I took care of all the middle school, and I did that for about 6 years before I became an assistant principal. Had about a 9-year run as a principal or assistant principal, And when the opportunity opened up again for the head job as the athletic director, I asked for it, and
Came to fruition. Yeah.
successfully second year. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And we'll get into that for sure. But you know, being in administration as principal, what are the challenges to be in that job today? What's the biggest thing that you have to deal with besides the kids? But
The fires. People don't understand that there's fires every day. They don't understand. You don't know what's coming in that door. You could plan for the whole day, you could plan for the whole week or the month, but one thing walking in that door surprise you and just upset the fruit basket, and you're starting over again. You just don't know what's coming in every day.
In doing that, that's hard to prepare for. Isn't it kind of maybe a big learning curve there? As you go.
Yeah. You have to have patience, and you have to think quick on your feet, and sometimes think out of the box. You just can't have a set guideline because, like I said, you just don't know what's coming.
Mm-hmm. So. And obviously, you have to deal with parents as well. And that's an important thing. And I always have coaches tell me, one of the biggest challenges for them is dealing with parents. And you really have a real balancing act there, don't you?
Yeah, parents and fans, you have to be respectful with them up front, though, and I think they'll show that back to you. I'm usually straightforward in dealing with people, and try to be honest with them, try to be professional with them, try to be courteous to them, and hopefully I get that back.
What are the things that you really like about being athletic director?
The success of the kids and the energy that the kids get. It's just fun watching. You prep for them all, and then I had 21 years in the middle school, so I never really experienced the high school.
Okay.
So now that I'm up to high school and I see the rewards the kids are getting as they become seniors, and I see them starting to get ready to go to their next level. As we sign, we signed 10 kids already this year for different colleges and sports, mm-hmm. and seeing that next level and making sure they're getting to that next level and they have all that paperwork done and all that NCAA stuff and watching them grow and then seeing them leave. That's real rewarding, seeing them make it to that next step.
What's your maybe biggest responsibility as athletic director? You're in the biggest school in the area here, so you've got stuff to deal with.
I guess keeping it going every day is the biggest responsibility. And like I said, before, we can plan for stuff, and I plan for stuff all day long. There's not a minute that goes by I'm not redoing a schedule or planning a new schedule. But that daily thing, man, if that phone call comes at 5 o'clock, where's my bus at? Something went wrong that day, mm-hmm. that we didn't have a bus. Or, with the weather sometimes, 2 weeks ago we had that snow and we had to reschedule everything at starting at noon, making a plan. What are we going to do? We're going Saturday instead. So again, even with the athletic part of it, the surprises that you encounter, you always have to be prepared, and you always have to have some kind of a backup plan or be ready to have a backup plan.
What's the event planning like? You have a game going on. What's involved with that?
Well, scheduling wise, it's nice to be in the AAC with a couple other teams. We all split up different assignments. So Highland might take basketball schedule and then, plan the leagues and so forth. So that's really nice. Being independent in football is kind of tough.
Right.
We're usually 2 or 3 years out because if you want to get a team, you want to get the nice teams or the competitive teams, yeah. you have to be out there to get them. We were fortunate enough to do that for the next couple of years. And just the scheduling itself changes daily. And then you have to find the time to get the schedules in. You're not talking about one sport, you're talking about 7 sports, and you're talking about 4 different levels. And the middle school still carries a double schedule there. And I'm fortunate to have Jerry Bruff, which is my assistant AD down at the middle school, puts all those schedules in, runs it, and really takes the load off my plate down there.
Absolutely. So you're talking about the team schedules. Let's take football, as you mentioned, playing independent. Do you sit down with the head coach, the coaching staff, and go through what might be out there? Because I have people always told me for years, why doesn't this team play that team? Why doesn't that team play this team? And my response is, it's not that easy. There's a lot that goes into it. It's really complex, and it doesn't work that way. But do you collaborate with the coaches on that? How's it play out?
It's interesting that you asked that because my first year coming in last year, I was with Coach Annarella.
Right.
And Coach Annarella really wanted to be part of that, and he really pushed it. And going into this past season, back in January, we still had 5 teams to get, and I was getting nervous because we only had 1 or 2 home games. And Coach Annarella told me, Jim, you got to trust me. You got to trust me. And he continued to tell me that. And we finally did pull that schedule together. And that schedule, usually when we schedule, it's a 2-year plan. So that schedule will be mirrored for next year.
Okay.
So that was, we were fortunate to do that. As you mentioned before, we are the biggest team around.
Yeah.
And not too many teams want to play us because of that.
Right.
We struggle to do that. So our normal is, we'll play Boardman and Warren and Mooney and Ursuline, but for everybody else around the area, they don't want to play us. So we're usually traveling about 45 minutes to an hour to find another team.
That's one of the downfalls of being independent. Do you have any gut feelings about perhaps being, having a league affiliation again sometime down the road?
Yes, I would like to see the league show, but again, who wants to play us in the football area? There's plenty of leagues to get into that'll play us in the Olympic sports, but when it comes to football, everybody just kind of shies away. And of course, then the bigger ones that the St. Ed's and that they're always knocking on the door and mentoring them. But for the local ones, we are picking up Cheney in 2 years, and that rivalry is going to come back.
Great.
So we'll have 2 years of Cheney. In 21 and 22.
Great. No, they've done a great job coming back, and that was always our opener when I was there for a long time.
That's what it's going to be again.
Good, great. That's great to hear. But do you have that much? You mentioned Hallam, though. Do you have much input with the basketball schedule? Or is that falls into place a little easier?
Yeah,
because of the league.
Actually, Bill Williamson from Warren, he takes care of the basketball. Andrea from Howland, she just does a lot of the other ones, and then we all have a hand in it. Marco from Boardman, he takes care of some stuff, and then Mike from out at Canfield, he does too. So we all take a turn in the different schedules.
How about the other sports though? The same thing with other teams. Okay. Yeah. Do you guys still have the big wrestling meet that you have every year?
Oh yeah, we just finished Hepner up about 3 weeks ago.
That's what I thought.
And it's taken off. We had the most teams ever. We had 31 teams in it. It's a 2-day event. It's gotten bigger than it's very close to the Top Gun, which is down in Alliance. But the week after that, then we also host the EOWL, which is not as big as ours, but it's every league. It's every team in the league, and Fitch is the place for it.
How do you manage all that? There's there's so many teams, there's so many people that come in. I mean, that's really got to be something.
If I told you I managed that, I'd be lying to you. Fortunately, the Hepner has a lot of people that really love it and are really committed to it, and it runs itself. You just need to get that stuff out there. What I need to do is get them what they need. Make sure the teams are in, make sure the money's turned in, make sure we have the workers, but those fans, those kids, those graduates, they all come back to run that, and I tell you what, it's their program, and you got to love them for it.
Well, Fitch has always had, when I was in school there, a premier wrestling program, and that's great to see that still going.
Yeah, very strong.
You mentioned workers, something like that, a football game, a bigger event. How does that fall into place? I mean, you have to reach out to people, or there are people there that volunteer, or take us through that just a little bit.
My ticket manager, I shouldn't say our ticket manager, Allison Jones, does a great job. She has a whole set of the workers for tickets and stuff like that, the upfront. Tom Collins, Lieutenant Tom Collins from Austintown, he takes care of the security for us. I just have to schedule, get him in there. We have some great other people. John Bird, when it comes to the EOWL and the Hepner, he's our head wrestling coach, and he gets all those younger kids to run the mats, to tap the officials, and to run the clocks.
Okay.
So,
how do you compare doing this to being a principal, so to speak? Which you enjoy this more, or otherwise?
Yeah. The responsibility is totally different.
Yeah.
So it's like being a fireman and a police officer. They're totally different. You have to pick out what you like, and and you have to focus on different things. So to say which one I like better, well, I like getting stuff ready for kids to have fun, and that's what I'm doing mainly.
Okay, great. We're going to take a break and a lot more to talk about. Jim Payne from Austintown Fitch. We'll be right back after this.
Armstrong Local Programming has always delivered an exclusive and unique perspective on the very best events your region offers. High school sports, community events, parades, all your favorite shows from Armstrong are now calling the Neighborhood Channel their home.
Watch Out and About, Locally Speaking, and many other great local shows right here on the Armstrong Neighborhood Channel.
Find out everything that the Neighborhood Channel has to offer at ArmstrongNeighborhood.com. Spirit, town pride, local communities. Welcome to the neighborhood.
Back on Loose Change, I'm Jim Evans along with Jim Payne, Athletic Director at Austintown Fitch. And before we get back into that, of course, Jim and I have known each other for, almost 20 years now. And you got into radio on the sidelines with our broadcasts. My first year back doing play-by-play. And Jack Kenny was in the booth, former Fitch coach, and you were down on the sideline. And we had a lot of fun that season for sure. I still have good memories. And what was that experience like for you?
Well, I remember.
If you can recall.
Oh, I can recall well. We did have a great time, and I think we always got ourselves in trouble. But prepping right before it seemed like something went wrong every time, but we had it fixed right before we went on the air. And that was the year Maurice Claret was senior, and we did chase Maurice around all the way down to Cincinnati.
Yep.
And I can remember.
I'm going to have you talk about that.
Cincinnati Elder was my favorite story with you guys, because you guys were always stuck up in a box, and they were cooking everything that night because it was their last game. And I was down there, and I was walking around with a microphone, and I told them they'd be on the air, and they were handing me free sandwiches every 10 minutes, and you guys were up there starving in the box.
But we could smell the aroma was terrific. It was a really nice, warm fall evening, and what an atmosphere that was. They held him in check that night.
Yeah,
and they came out on top.
The name of that stadium was the 11th man, or the 12th man, I think. And I tell you what, I was 10 feet from the official after it got going, and you couldn't hear the whistles blowing. That's how loud those fans were.
I'm
it was
glad
incredible.
you said that, because I've never done a high school game where the crowd has been that loud.
Yep.
It was packed that night. And I'm still trying to recover from our trip home from that. We were supposed to stay in Cincinnati, and we ended up driving home the whole night.
I think Jack Kenny did that to us. I think he said, "Let's just go home, fellas." And we did drive home that night.
The
That was a
Waffle
tough one.
House experience coming back too. But you did a great job down there. Well, it had to be fun talking to the coaches and a lot of the kids when you did that.
It was fun. It was tough getting an interview with Maurice Claret afterwards, because they were trying to keep him safe and out of everybody's way. But for the most part, it was fun going around. I do remember going to the Massillon game and having personal interest in that, because we went down to see Fitch play, and I remember the Watson kid getting hurt.
Yeah.
And at halftime, I was in there trying to break in there and stuff, and my reports was the only thing going back at that time, because there wasn't as much communication as we have nowadays. So I do remember people telling me the next day in school, "Hey, thanks for that report that we were hearing from you." So I do remember that too.
That was cool. Yeah, we had a great time. And of course, you mentioned Phil Annarella, coach. Actually took a year off to do some broadcasting, himself, and he was up in the booth with Jim Campbell. But I got to know him a little more that year, having already had a relationship with him, and my relationship. And we've had him here on the show. We had him here previously, and I still value the relationship I had with him, and I still think about him a lot. And that was one of the most tragic stories of the year last year, not just in sports locally, but to lose a guy like Phil Annarella. What was your relationship like with him?
I knew him. I actually hired him. I was on the hiring committee. I was the assistant AD when they went through the committee, so I didn't solely hire him, but I was on that committee to hire him. So I've known him since that, and had a really nice relationship with him as a principal. He would always come down, whatever he needed, I try to get him. And then as his new AD last year, worked along with him, learned to trust him, and he delivered every time. He told me, "Jim, you got to trust me on this," and I did. And darned if he didn't.
He knew what he was doing.
Yeah. And then unfortunately, I had not talked to him for a day or two, and I was expecting to, and he was never not on time with a phone call or stopping by. and
And we lost him.
yeah.
Again, we were gone but not forgotten. That certainly applies to Coach Annarella. And I know my experience with him, it was about the kids for him. And, a lot of coaches say that, and they are, but boy, it truly was for him.
And it wasn't just our kids, though.
Right, yeah.
We had the calling hours at the school.
I remember.
And
that,
it was really really nice to see Warren's football staff come in, all in the same uniform. Very somber, but they were very respectful coming in. And then that was also the same with Akron Bookdale. We've had a scrimmage with Akron Bookdale, our second scrimmage for the last 6 years. Coach Annarella set that up. They come down every year. We have a scrimmage. They have pizza. I told them, Coach Annarella passed away. We're going to have a scrimmage, and then we're going to have a memorial service after, which we had a really nice one. Everybody put a nice one on. And I said, you guys can go in and have your pizza. They said, we want to be here for that. They went up in the stands and sat. They had brought signs, and they said it was just as important to them as it was to us.
Well, yeah, again, he had an impact on a lot of people, and certainly what he did, on the field speaks for itself. And I still remember covering the 1990 season when he, did the merger and Warren. That was, remember, the Titans 2.0. I mean, what he achieved that year, and I got to know him initially then, and what a guy and what a coach, but just a great man, and he'll never be forgotten for sure.
Sure.
T.J. Parker now, the new head coach, former Fitch standout. Talk about him a little bit.
Well, I've known TJ since I started at Frankel. It was on my first team as an assistant football coach. He was there, so I followed his career all the way up, watched him go off to college and then return to us. I think he's brought a lot of energy back already to the program. He tells me I might never win a game, but I'm going to bring back that positive energy that Austintown Fitch football once had. And he's really hitting it off in there, with the new weight facility, the new weight trainer. He's pushing hard with it.
And of course, most recently he was an assistant at Westminster, correct? And having that experience at that level as well as high school, that means something, doesn't it?
It does. He's got a little outside the box thinking.
Yeah.
It's like a college level thinking right now. So.
And that can only benefit the program. So, sad times for Austintown Fitch, and John did a nice job this past year to keep it going, and now stepping on the gas a little more and shifting gears, and everybody has to be excited about what's ahead here for football. Brian Beanie, I haven't seen him in a while, but he's been doing boys baskets for a little time now, and he's been doing a great job with that too.
Yeah, he is, and they'll move into their. We have Boardman tomorrow night for our final game at Boardman. We'll have our hands full with that one, but then we'll start tournament next Wednesday, where we'll travel down to Glen Oak for our first game.
We know how football, is the deal for high school around here, but people still come out to see baskets, and
Sure.
We have some good basketball here. Maybe we don't have teams that go down and win state championships because it's so hard to get through Canton in there and everything. It's semi-pro ball there almost, but we still have a good basketball product here. We have a lot of great coaches.
Sure. Besides Beanie, we also have Dan Schoenberger, which runs a girls program.
Yeah.
Dan's solid. The unique part about the girls basketball program is all of Dan's staff at the varsity level and the freshman level are all teachers in the buildings. And that staff, you can really see that. I mean, we have great coaches outside of the school, but that extra, advantage they have inside the school really helps with the program.
Talk about that for people who don't know. Why is that such a big advantage? I mean, it might be kind of obvious, but to have the coaches in the building, why is that such a big deal?
Well, we were fortunate with Coach Annarella was retired and he could walk the building.
Time, right?
And every Monday he was known to be walking that building and checking grades.
Okay.
With the same thing, if you're a teacher in one of the buildings, you can check on those grades and stuff. But and I don't say they don't, but those coaches that are outside the building don't have that same advantage of walking down the hall checking grades because they most likely have a job, working outside where they can't get into the school to check that stuff.
Well, we had a chance to come over and do the playoff game for football this past season, Poland, and the facility there is without compare now. Talk about how that has grown, and maybe we'll continue to grow, hopefully.
Well, you're going to be first to hear this, but we're just getting started. We're just getting started. So 3 years ago, this will be our third season with the new fields. You know, we put 3 new fields in: baseball field, the new turf on our regular field, and then we did an auxiliary turf field. I don't know if you guys know, you got to stop by and see, but we hired a strength coach, Dan Wedding, back in August, and he's a full-time strength coach. So not just football, not just basketball, but every sport from girls tennis, girls golf, to swimming is required to be in there at least twice a week during season, 3 times in the off season. Brand new weight facility with 14, machines and stuff like that. Just top of the line there. We are now getting ready to turn the softball program around and put them on that auxiliary turf field. That's project started yesterday when they approved it at the board meeting. So we're going to see girls playing turf ball right next to the boys on the turf. And it's going to be exciting to see that whole complex in the back become into one.
That used to be, I just remember the mud back there when we practiced down in the lower end of the field for late in the football season. And I look out from the press box from the football stadium. It's like, holy cow, that is amazing. And boy, there had to be a lot of people involved to get that going, the new turf for the baseball complex.
Yeah, there's a lot of people. You know, Mark Miller has been taking care of that grounds for about 25 years now, and he does a great job. And we added John Jones to that, which has been involved in that for a long time. We are blessed that the board keeps approving stuff that we ask them to do. And I got a new maintenance guy, Matt Boston, and he's tearing it up. He keeps right up with me. You know, I give him a grocery list every couple days, and they're getting the work done for us, and that helps. You know, the track program also. You know, we have the middle school and the high school up there, and you got about 200 kids running around there every afternoon. We doubled up, and we don't just have one shot ring. We have 2 shot rings. We have 2 discus rings. You know, you got to keep adding to keep the rate for the kids.
Well, if you remember when you were with us doing radio, we had to be up in that old press box on the home side, and it would be packed up there. Now there's the newer box, which is a lot more accommodating for us, and get some heaters in though for the winter time or when it's colder anyway. But that's such a great facility now, that football stadium and the scoreboards and just everything. It's one of the gems for sure of the area, Northeast Ohio. And will there be anything more with the football field, or is it a football stadium, or is it pretty much where it's going to be?
We're going to be doing some stuff. I don't want to let it
That's
out
fine.
there. We'll just call it upkeep. We're going to continue upkeep. Okay. We did talk about a certain individual that will probably work towards doing something to promote all of our coaches, but it'll start with him. I think you could figure that one out.
Okay, well,
but I don't want to let any of the cats out of the bag until
that's all right. We'll look for it, in the news. So. But man, it's just the wheels turning over there, and you're doing a fantastic job, and I'm really happy for you that it's going good, and keep up the great work, and hopefully we'll have a seat reserved again, for football, maybe basketball again. We're going to try and hopefully get that going again. So, Jim, it's great to see you. Thanks so much for being here, and good luck to you.
Thank you.
Jim Penk. We'll be right back to wrap it up right after this.
There's so much you can do with technology. It's amazing. Armstrong gives you control of your home network and all the entertainment that makes your world go round. If you need help, we're easy to reach for support, too. Armstrong, life made easy.
That's going to do it for us. Thanks again to Jim Payne. Best luck to the Falcons. Thanks as always to Greg Roten. All of you, Mom and Dad, you can catch us on YouTube, of course. Just go to Armstrong Loose Change. And we'll catch you next time right here. We will. I promise.